rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up, public to be heard. We have none. So it would be me with some good news. All right, from the high school, Kelly Garner. I want to give a huge thank you to Lisa Brown in the main office at the high school. Lisa's ability to juggle multiple tasks and requests with a smile is unmatched. I'm personally so grateful to her with all of her help with the PSAT that took place last week. She's often the glue that holds the building together, and I know our staff is endlessly grateful to her. From the middle school, Elizabeth Volpe. Mrs. Woodward and Ms. Volpe had a very successful and fun October club field trip. Our group walked from the middle school to John Kennedy and enjoyed a beautiful fall day outdoors. And let's see, from Robert Morris and Jackson, Principal Notaro and Principal Tori. Robert Morris teachers are working very hard to expose UPK students to the programs at Jackson to create vertical alignment and prepare for kindergarten. Jackson teachers have noticed and appreciated all the instructional work they are doing at UPK as students are coming in with great classroom routines and habits. And there are plenty more to look at for the good news, so please, if you have the opportunity, please get online and look at it. Up next, we have our presentations, and we have a few of them tonight. First up would be Coach Rick Stewart from the wrestling team.
Good evening, everyone. Does everyone have a copy of this, or did I just? So I'll just give you the gist. We're planning on participating in the tournament in Woodbridge, Virginia. It's northern Virginia. It's about a 6-hour drive. The dates are the 28th to the 30th of December, so it's over the break, so there's no missing any school. We'll leave that Thursday the 28th, the morning of. Get there around 2 p.m., check into the hotel. We're going to go to the high school once the mats are set up for the tournament, get a workout in. Return to the hotel, and then hang out there, bed down for the night. Obviously, most of these kids won't be going out to eat because they have to make weight Wednesday. Which would be for 2 days, 2-day tournament, so both days would be scarce on food. Friday we wake up, go to the tournament, wrestle. I think the tournament will end around 6, 7 p.m. Again, come back to the hotel. The 30th we go back, do morning weigh-ins. Wrestling starts around 8 again, and then the last round is at 3 o'clock, so we should be done wrestling by 5 on the way back to New York, so we'll be home around 11, 11:30 p.m. Travel, we were asked to use school transportation, the van. 2 coaches are going to drive, myself in the Tavia van, Attica, Lance Bannister in the Attica van, which gives us enough room for the starting lineup. Plus the parents that are going taking their own kids with them. Lodging at the Spring Hill Suites, paid for by our wrestling funds that we already have, boosters, so it's no cost to the school. Our supervision, you got myself, Coach Bannister, Bobby Darch, who was a coach last year, modified as attending, and Gutman is Mr. Gutman's group status offered to go. My wife's going, and there's 2 other active parents going, so there's plenty of parents in attendance. Obviously, there's a health incident. One of the coaches, 2 coaches there, so one of us can leave with the kid and get to the hospital, and so kind of health issue, not hospitalized. So the only cost, basically, to the school would just be the fuel cost. Any questions?
Any questions?
How many kids are you planning on, Coach?
13 varsity wrestlers.
And you have, how many parents are going? You have, like, you say you got you and Coach Bannister going?
There's definitely 3 Batavia, 2 coaches, and then probably 2 more at so 5 parents.
I think that, right? Okay, there's no questions? Coach, thank you very much. And can I have a motion?
So,
Ms. Linda, can I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bowman? All in favor?
Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Coach, you're all set. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, good luck. Good luck.
All right, next up, Winter Guard Trips presentation, Mrs. Shannon Malander.
Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon, just to introduce myself. I'm a parent of 3 kids in the district, and I'm a proud 1996 graduate of the high school as well. And then we have 2 Winter Guard members with us as well.
I'm Fred Lander, I'm the oldest child. I'm a senior at Batavia, and I've been doing Winter Guard since the 4th grade.
I'm Sophie Fryer, also a senior at this high school, Batavia High School, and I've been doing it since 4th grade too. So Freya and Sophie, just to say a little bit more about that, they were the first year that we started our cadet guard, which is kind of our, our training ground for our varsity, if you would say, Winter Guard. And one of the purposes of starting that guard was to kind of grow the varsity guard to be more competitive and be able to go and to these out-of-town trips to kind of make a name for ourselves a little bit. And them doing this is kind of evidence of that program working. So I wanted to bring them and to kind of show that a little bit too. They're going to be my support group. Okay, so besides taking over, like I keep calling myself New Jane because, as you know, Jane Haggett did a lot with our programs, our Winter Guard programs, our music programs, and she left. I think there's like 5 or 6 people that do all the different jobs that she was doing over the years. But this is my first foray into doing what she did for the district, all this little planning stuff for the Winter Guards. But besides that, I am also a high school teacher. I've been teaching in Churchville this is my 24th year, and have traveled with students out of the country and to New York City over the years for many other trips. So even though this is my first time doing this with Batavia, I have some experience in this. Let's see. So I just want to give you a quick overview, especially. Thanks. Is that me or just about the Winter Guard program really quickly, and I know you can read this. We're competitive. If you kind of know what Winter Guard is, I'm sure some of you have seen it before, but it's like if you took color guard that you know is in a parade and a dance team, and you married them together on a gym floor, that's kind of what you see. It's very, performance-based at stage. It's judged similarly to like gymnastics or ice skating in the Olympics, where you have different judges that judge different facets of the performance. We've been part of the school since the early 2000s, but this kind of performance group has been a part of our area for a really long time. I got into it because my dad was in it, and my kids the same thing. We compete locally in the Northeast Color Guard Circuit, and that also involves high schools like Victor and Lancaster and Orchard Park and Jamestown, as well as other independent groups that aren't affiliated with schools. And then lastly, we want to, this is our hope, go to the international competition, which happens in Dayton, Ohio, every year. We've been able to do that one other time a few years ago, and we're hoping to be competitive in that nature. We are ranked from going that first time. We actually had a really good showing our first time out. We were able to make it from prelims to semis amongst over 100 groups from all over the country and even outside of our country as well. The purpose of our trips is to be more competitive, make a name for ourselves, and get to the Winter Guard International. We have to attend a couple of regionals in order to go to Dayton and compete. And one of the reasons that we go outside of our area for these regional competitions is basically, I try to liken it to sports. We have to get out of our area to kind of be seen by other judges. So that's one of the purposes for the other trips we take before we get to championships. And basically, this is, as you can see, we have a couple of perfect examples here. They got into it as 9-year-olds, and they're still doing it. And they actually compete outside of the school year in a summer program as well. So we have a lot of committed members, and the whole idea is this like team affiliation. It's the same as our sports players. My son is in 10th grade. He plays sports all year long. And he gets the same thing out of his teammates as we do out of Winter Guard. It's just a little bit lesser known, I think. So our first trip that we would like to go to is Pittsburgh. It's a one night, overnight. We would leave on Friday, return on Saturday night. We will compete the first day twice. We'll get to Pittsburgh, settle down in our hotel. The next day we'll do a practice site that's provided by us for the regional. And then we will go compete, see what our status is, and then compete again later that night, and then return home. Cincinnati Regional is kind of similar. It just takes over 2 days. So we have a prelims and then a finals. Prelims on Saturday, finals on Sunday. We would return back to Batavia on Sunday. Leave on Friday, return on Sunday. Same idea, we have some practice sites. Usually it's area high schools, and some of the schools, like the one in Pittsburgh, is a really big district. So it feels like a GCC campus when you go to these high schools because they're really big. This one, we get to go to Xavier University, where we have competed before in finals. And then lastly, when we go to Dayton, which we're hoping to do, there's multiple days of activities here. Most of the stuff is kind of centered around University of Dayton Arena and everything that's surrounded there, but there's also some possibilities of going back to Xavier University. Prelims for us will be on Thursday, and then possible of semis and finals on Friday. And then we will go participate in watching some of the other classes of guards on Saturday and return back to Batavia on Saturday. So how will performers cover costs? We have a lot of fundraising we've been doing. We've actually been fundraising all through last year to kind of get some of the little things we needed in order to prepare and be competitive for our season this year. We already did a car wash. We actually started our coffee sale last week. Our candy bar sale starts next week. And then we'll also have a calendar fundraiser. We're doing Annie Ann's. And these fundraisers are also offered to anybody that falls under our music programs. So even though our guards aren't that big, but many of our guard members also are in chorus and band, as these guys are, and other arts that we have at the school. So it's all falls under that. We also have our big Batavia Winter Guard show, which will happen at the high school in February, and that's another big fundraiser for us as well. We're also able to do sometimes with Batavia's Original, and we also, with all of these, it does help the guard members fund their costs, but it also helps like our music scholarships and things like that. What if a child becomes ill or injured on one of the trips? Training as a teacher, I'm also first aid certified and CPR. I was a yoga instructor before COVID kind of shut everything down, and then I never went back because there were 3 teenagers at home. All the competition sites all are equipped with EMTs like you would see at big sporting competitions. We also take all the student medical information. All of that will be done through Nancy Heights, so she has all of that as well. And then we do have experienced instructional staff. Our 2 main instructors I have been the instructors here for about 10 years. So they know the program, they know the competitions, and they are also well versed in any sort of first aid that needs to happen. We also take parent chaperones with us. Typically we have 3 to 4 parents if we go anywhere. And so with myself, our 2 instructors, and 3 or 4 parents, that's about 7 kids for about 12 students as a ratio, which is pretty good. Because when we go to New York City with 8th graders, they give you about 20 to 1. So Europe, it's 6 to 1 through EF, just so you know. If anybody has any questions, are you guys going to go to Europe? Yeah. We're actually going, I'm sorry, in Churchville, we're actually going in the summer, so let me know if you have any. Because I'm
Yeah, right.
I'll let you know. Anybody have any questions? I know I went so fast, but I also didn't want to waste time because I know you guys do have the information.
So with all the fundraising, are most of the guard able to pay for their trips, or?
Yeah, they are, and we do tell families that this is the plan. So they do know, even though our trips aren't fully approved yet, this is the plan going forward if families need to save, because again, we know not everybody can do it, and usually that can cover. If there's, like for example, the instructional staff will also sell the coffee, the chocolate bars, and sometimes we use that as a scholarship for incidentals for students. Yeah. Anything else?
No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Ms. Leonard, can I have a second? Ms. Bowman? All in favor? Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set?
Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You have a great competition.
Oh, yes, thank you. And we'll probably be sending videos as well.
Please do.
Good luck, you do a nice job.
Thank you. Good luck, guys. Oh, we're doing Switzerland, Italy, France, and Spain.
All right, next up, EF Tours Europe trip. Mrs. Molly George and Mrs. Janine Skenio.
You can hold your applause to the end.
We're gonna connect you guys also. Some people are not here.
Stood up. Yeah.
Hold on, no, he's here. Just a minute. Tim, can you hear us?
Hello, how's it going?
Okay, they're just gonna get ready to present, okay? So I'm gonna bring up them and their presentation, okay?
Perfect, sounds great. Hello, everyone.
There you go, folks.
I got it to her. All right. Good evening, I'm Molly George, and as some of you may know, I'm a 29-year teacher here. I teach ELA, and I'm also a 1985 graduate. Don't do the math, please. But one reason, there's a couple reasons we decided to take on this endeavor. 2 summers ago, I took a solo trip to Honduras and had an amazing experience myself. And spending so much time with teenagers, I just kept thinking what a great experience something like that could be for kids. And then I remembered when I was in high school back in the 80s, my sister had taken a trip with EF Tours with a teacher and had a really tremendous experience and still talks about it today. During COVID, I became certified as an online life coach, and I had clients all across the world, from Poland, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. And as I got to interact with people globally, it really kind of set in that we are really living in a global community. And even though I haven't gone very far from Batavia, I know there's a lot more out there, and we'd really love to create an experience for our students to experience something. And last year I started looking into EF, and then lo and behold, we had a great presentation at a faculty meeting last spring with Kristen, and it was presented to the faculty who would be interested. And then I teamed up with Janine, and lo and behold, not only a fantastic, brand new to us math teacher, a very experienced EF traveler.
Hi, so I'm Janine Scanio. I teach high school math here, and even though I'm new to this district, I've taught for a long time other places, and I've actually run 6 tours with EF Tours. So when they did a presentation after a faculty meeting and talked about trips with EF, I kind of stood up and said, if anybody is interested and wants me to help them out, I would love to help, because I've done a lot of these before, and I know how great it is for students to be able to travel. And I believe so strongly in it that even my own 2 daughters, when they were in high school, they also traveled with EF on trips. So sometimes you say, like, it's something that I would send my own children on, and that's a fact that I sent my own children on it. So I just thought it would be so great to be able to bring this experience to students in Batavia School District, because I know in my previous district, I saw how much the students got out of it. Kids who had never traveled, and like it was their first time on an airplane, and they got to experience things in another country, and it just opened their eyes to how different things are in different places, and what a great experience they had. I never had a single student who went and said, wow, that was a waste of money. They were all like, oh, can we go again? And I had a lot of students who actually went on multiple trips because they enjoyed them so much. So I'm really excited about the possibility of being able to share this with students in this district as well.
And speaking of students in this district, we've brought with us tonight Peyton and Eva.
And they're going to get a chance to talk about why they're interested in going on this trip. And we also have Tim Graham, who you saw his picture when he was up before. He's the representative from EF. He's the person that we're working with. And if we do this trip, he will help to organize the trip and to finalize all of our hotels and our airlines and all of those things. So we would be working in conjunction with EF. So we're going to hand it over to him for a minute so that he can talk a little bit about EF tours.
Awesome, thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me again. My name's Tim Graham. I'm our manager for the Batavia School District. So if you were to move forward and be interested in having a travel program, as you mentioned, I would work through the steps of getting course approved, picking out where school wants to go, and eventually getting ready to travel. I also work closely with another colleague here who serves as an experience specialist. So me and her partner together to make sure the full cycle of the tour goes soundly. So from the front end of picking when and where and the logistics, all the way through making sure students and families are ready to travel. So a little bit of background on EF for those who aren't familiar. EF is a family-owned business. It has existed since 1965. And the founding story really ties well to the mission, which is the main reason I like to share it. Bertil Holt, who is pictured here, grew up in Sweden as a dyslexic student and went to study English in school and then ended up dropping out. His next move from there was moving to London and busting tables. In that span, he became fluent in English, moved back home to Sweden, and started EF, which is now the world leader in international education travel. So really it's a perfect example of experiential learning, getting outside of the classroom, and what it can do to someone is really how this whole thing started. But now we employ 27,000 educators. We have offices around the world in 50 countries, and those staff help aid the tours that go on throughout the world.
Okay, so the next slide, if we saw the slides, talks about the philosophy of, it's an educational philosophy if you have the handout. So, there we go. And EF stands for Education First. So even though the kids are having lots of fun, you're tricking them into learning a lot of things, and they're really learning a lot about that. So Tim is going to go over this briefly with us as well.
Awesome, thank you. So yes, these are our learning philosophies. So as mentioned, this is how they're tricked into learning, so they're having a great time. So the four things that we focus on when we're building out these itineraries is we want students to come home having developed a growth mindset, having gained a global perspective, have gone on a personal development journey, and learned about action and impact and how they can impact the world. So these are what we believe is important when students get out into the world, and we make sure that the activities that we have, the guides that we bring in, really every part of the tour is going to reflect these components that we call our learning philosophy.
All right, and then our next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the itinerary. So one of the things is that the money never will have to go through the school or the school district at all. Each student gets their own personal account, and they can pay each month on their account and on their trip. So we don't have to collect any money. No money has to go through the school at all. They pay directly to EF Tours. And it includes everything. So it includes your round trip airfare, your hotel, and so what they do is when the teachers are on, we get these little things each day that we can rate the different hotels and all of this. And there are schools from all over the world that are going on these trips. So if people don't like a hotel, they say, hey, we didn't like this hotel, and then they make sure not to book that one again. So the regional style meals, what's really nice, like if we are able to do this tour, we're planning to go to Vienna, and we're gonna have Wiener Schnitzel. So things that you can have that maybe you could get at a restaurant here, but it's not authentic. So there you're eating the actual food that the actual people who live in those countries are eating. And every morning there's a huge breakfast, sort of like a buffet breakfast. Kids fill up on that. And then at dinner, there is a dinner at a restaurant, and nobody goes hungry. There's plenty to eat. So the only thing they would be responsible for is possibly a lunch, just pick up a quick sandwich or something like that, and any spending money they wanted to do. There's a tour director that's with you the whole time, so as soon as you land at your destination, which for us, our first destination would be in Budapest, we would have a tour director that meets us at the airport and stays with us for the entire time that we're on the trip, travels to all the countries with us. They're fluent in many languages. Anything that comes up, they know how to handle. They can take care of any of those issues. We also have like one of those big coach buses, and that's how we travel from place to place. And Molly and I looked up like, well, how far is it from Budapest to Vienna? It's about a 2.5-hour drive. So you're on this bus and you're seeing all this beautiful scenery and all these great things as you're going from place to place. And it seems about the same distance from Vienna to Prague, which would be our final destination. And along with having that tour director that takes you everywhere and knows everything, you also have local guides. So every time you go to a new place, there's a local guide that's an expert in that particular city that can tell you all the interesting things about it. So I'm not going to go through every different place that we would see, but the entrances to all the landmarks and attractions are already paid for. So what's really cool, and there are things that you could never do here, is when we are in Budapest, we're going to be going to a castle. When we're in Vienna, we're going to be going to a palace. And then we're going to be going to like the palace gardens in Prague, and also a castle there. So the kids always love that. They're like, kings and queens have been in here. You know, obviously in the United States we don't have kings and queens. The closest thing we would have is the White House. But to be able to go to these palaces and to see like, wow, this is how people lived, is really a great experience. And you go right to the head of the line. You don't have to wait in these big long lines that you see. You're with the group, you go right up to the front, you get right in, and you go on your tours. And so it's all inclusive. It really is a fantastic thing. The only thing the students would have to pay on top of it is if they want to buy any souvenirs and their lunch each day if they want to grab a little bit something. So, okay, so we're going to go to safety, and I'm going to have Tim talk about that.
Perfect. So when it comes to travel, obviously there's a lot of unknowns, and safety is our top priority. One thing I've already touched on quickly is we do have 50 offices throughout the world. Our main headquarters is actually just outside of Zurich. Through this office and many other offices is where we staff our tour directors that Janine mentioned, as well as emergency service teams. So this is something we just want to make sure people know there is on the ground support in the countries we're traveling to. The second piece is our 24/7 safety and incident response team. On tour, this is a line for students, for chaperones, for the group leader to call if anything of any kind happens on tour. It's, again, staffed 24/7 throughout different time zones, making sure that if anything comes up, we're able to assist. And then lastly, I do really like to emphasize the tour director is with you from when you land in Budapest and from the time you fly out at the end of the trip. So they are there the entire time with the group. Not only are they fun, but they really are there to do safety checks on the hotels. They stay at the hotels. They are working with the bus driver, with the local guides, and making sure everything runs on time. So having this person here is a fantastic resource on top of it being a fantastic experience. And then EF does offer a 6-to-1 chaperone ratio. So every 6 students traveling, EF providing a free place for staff. So between all that on the ground, and if additional resources are needed, like through the safety and incident response team, EF makes sure that safety is front of mind.
That I would only want to ever travel with EF. And I've been on trips where you see schools that are with a different company and they'll say, oh, you guys are with EF? Oh, we wish we'd gone with EF. And so, like, people know that EF is like the #1, and I always feel like you are so safe on these trips. Anything you need, if there has to be a change really quick, these tour directors know how to make changes really quick. And they give all the kids like a little wristband with a phone number on there. So if there's ever a problem, they can just flip it over and call that number, and right away they can get somebody to help them. So I'm never worried about safety on any of these trips at all. So now we're gonna go to our next slide, and we're gonna have our students talk.
So the main reason I want to go on this trip is because of the cultural enrichment I get there. I've never been outside of the US. I've barely been outside of New York State. I've been to a couple other states, but I've rarely gotten to travel, and getting to travel with everyone in my, like with a bunch of people in my school, and the cultural enrichment, because these are 3 distinct different European countries that have so many different cultures and customs. Just the cultural enrichment I'd get from that would be so amazing.
And to add on top of that, every single city speaks a different language, and a week-long trip, the academic enrichment that you get from this, and to spend it at this age with your friends, and the cost is so much less than what you'd experience if you didn't go through this, and to have everything already taken care of, 2 meals each day, and you only have to pay for lunch, and if you get souvenirs, it's really just a lot easier to do it like this.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is kind of what our itinerary would look like. We'd fly in on the first day, and we always tell the kids, sleep on the plane, because the time difference, as soon as you get there, you got to be ready to go. We're going to start touring. So when you first get there, we would take a walking tour of Budapest, and then we're going to explore with the local guide. So we would spend 2 full days in Budapest, Hungary. And then after that, we would be taking our coach bus to Vienna, which is in Austria. Happens to be one of my favorite countries, probably my favorite country. It's absolutely beautiful. If you've never been, you guys might want to go too. So we're going to be there for only for 1 day, and then we'll be driving to Prague in the Czech Republic. And it is said that Prague and Budapest are the 2 most beautiful cities in all of Europe. So when we were kind of deciding what trip to do, I thought this would be a really nice one. We actually gave the students an option of 3 different trips. So I came up with 3 different trips, presented each of them. We let the kids decide, and it was almost unanimous that the students wanted this trip. There was a couple of kids that this was their second choice, but almost all of the students had this as their first choice. And then on the 7th day, we would fly home again. So this is just sort of where we, just a quick thing, and about how much it's going to cost, including everything. And I don't know, Tim, I think, wants to jump in and talk just a little bit about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So jumping in here, one thing you'll notice on here is EF's Peace of Mind program. So tied to safety, one thing that nobody in the world can control is what it might look like a year from now when the tour happens. This Peace of Mind program is EF's guarantee to families that if anything happens in a country that your school or just community doesn't feel safe going anymore, you have flexibility to switch the destination or the dates based on that. So EF also can enact this policy on our end. For example, if a country ever reaches a state advisory level 4, we won't allow travel. But it doesn't necessarily have to hit that for your group to change it. So this is just a way for us to assure you, the best way to plan travel for students is planning it further out. And this gives the peace of mind on the back end if anything changes. So that's the main thing I want to highlight there. We also include global travel protection insurance. It's our in-house insurance. This helps coverages when it comes to like flight delays, cancellations, things like that. So this is included in the quote. And again, everything we mentioned on the previous slides included. Right now, this quote is active through December. It could change in January. So in the interest of giving families more months to pay, this would be the quote that you'd have at a December meeting for families.
So right now, we're looking to go in July, so it would be after the school year, so students wouldn't miss any school. And our target date right now is around July 25th. So we were thinking of leaving around the 25th with some flexibility to leave a few days before or a few days after that. And the whole trip would be a 7-day trip. So do you have any questions for us? Yes?
How many students are interested in going?
We had an interest meeting, and we didn't, we had an announcement, but we didn't really advertise it a lot with a lot of posters because we wanted to get a decent amount of students so we would know how many were interested. And we had probably about 20 students that were interested. 18 said they're very, very interested. So we're about that, and it could be more than that once we start putting up posters and say, it's been approved, we're gonna have a parent meeting coming up. We may end up with numbers upwards from there as well.
And are you the only 2 chaperones?
So far.
For every 6 students, you get another chaperone. So Kat Rosati, who's another math teacher, she's traveled many times to Europe. She's actually run a marathon in Europe, and she told us that she would like to be a chaperone if we get up to our 18 number. And then we have a lot of other people that have mentioned that they would love to be chaperones if the entire board would like to be chaperones. So, yeah. So, any other questions?
So are you planning on fundraising for any of this?
So we've looked into some fundraising already. We talked to Mr. Hussein, and he's met with student council, and they will sponsor us to do a dance in the spring, and dances usually bring in about $3,000, so we would split it between the students going, and that could help with that. We're very open to anything. If people have great ideas of different fundraisers, we've been kind of looking into things. There's also the Batavia Foundation, and we were kind of seeing if we could maybe get a scholarship for a student who couldn't afford to go otherwise. So I've been talking with Jess Corzelius. Her husband is the president of the Batavia Foundation. Need a little drink of water? Zach, and so I talked to her about it, and she's like, oh, I really want to see if we can make this happen for our students, especially a student who, you know, would just love to do this and just doesn't have the financial means to do that. So we know that our fundraising would not be able to pay for an entire trip. Students would have to come up with money on their own. There's a way they can set up their account and get like their grandparents to give them money, like instead of a birthday present, can you give me money toward my trip? Or instead of a Christmas present, give me money. I had a student one year, he was one of 10 kids, and his parents were like, well, what are we gonna do? And he really wanted to go. So he did a bottle drive in his neighborhood. He did like a lot of different fundraisers on his own, and he got the money, and that kid was the happiest kid I've ever seen on a trip because he worked so hard for that money. So
these possible 18 students that you're talking
Yeah.
about, do their parents know that they want to do this?
Well, we wanted
Good question. Did you tell your mom?
We are planning to do a parent meeting, but we couldn't do a parent meeting until we got board approval. Once we have board approval, we will open it up to parents. We'll have a meeting at night. We will give them all the information about it, all the pricing and everything, and then we'll know for sure who we have. And I did share with the kids that Michelle Obama, in her book, she wrote that when she was in high school, she had an opportunity to go to Paris, and she didn't tell her mom because she's like, we can't afford it, I'll never be able to go. And then her mom found out from somebody else and said, Michelle, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, well, Mom, I didn't think that we could afford it. And she's like, no, this is important, I want you to go on this trip. And her parents found a way for her to go. So I said, even if you think like, I don't think my parents are gonna let me, ask. And you never know. And even if you're a kid and you ask this year and they're like, I don't know about this year, but we could save up some money and you could do it in a future year too. So, I mean, I would love to be able to do a fundraiser that could pay for every person to go, but, you know, we'll try what we can.
Not so much a question, but Alice, I did this trip with Mrs. Grant, used to take them, not through EF, but it's gotta be over 25 years now.
When did you go? Because I went with
96.
Leroy and Mr. Grant.
96, summer 96, we went to Italy. But it wasn't much, we went for 10 days and it was really not much less than it is now. So it's.
It really is a good price for what you're getting, and it's because they do so many of these that they have deals with the different places and they can get you group rates on things. And so like if you price these out on your own, it's a lot more than if you go on one of these trips. So it really is a good value for what you're getting. Other questions?
Well, I think it would be a great thing to have you guys go. I had the opportunity when I was in high school to go to England and Wales. So trust me, it's well worth it.
That's great.
Yeah.
See, and you still remember, right?
Yes, I do.
And you're still glad you
It
went,
can be
exactly.
life-changing, for sure.
It is.
Is it possible if you guys go, that you come back to the board and talk about what you learned and
Sure.
share? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like we approve trips and then we never hear
Yeah.
about them or competitions. You know, you might see something on the district website or something, but I know
Yeah.
you're graduating, so it falls on your junior.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of juniors that are interested in going on the trip, so there's a lot of kids that could come. I think that would be great. They could come back and do a presentation.
And like Janine said, we kind of were in this place where we need to have some interest to start the ball rolling, and then when we have approval, we can really present to like 10th through 12th graders and see how much more interest, and then we'll have some more exact numbers to give them. And I think we'll have plenty of interest.
Any other questions? Ladies and students, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Could I have a
Thanks,
motion?
Tim.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Alice, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Tim. Good
Could I have
to
a
see you.
second, please?
Thank you.
That's my bad.
Have a good night. Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, you are all set.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
We'll also take lots of pictures and we'll share them, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Good night, Tim.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Corzelius, principal of the Batavia Middle School, and his crew are here to present.
These are tough presentations to follow.
And I want to go to Europe. Right?
So, for any of you who have not met us as a team before, I'm Nate Corzelius. This is Travis Burns. He's our 7th and 8th grade assistant principal. And this is Kristen Schmidt, our new 5th and 6th grade assistant principal. So we're excited to be here tonight to talk to you about the state of the middle school, how we're doing, where we're going, and what our goals are for this year. There we go. So all of our goals and everything we're trying to do this year are grounded in our mission and vision as a district. Batavia City School District is committed to empowering students, reaching their maximum potential while becoming socially responsible citizens, but then also growing in a partnership with our community. So we were fortunate. We've had some really good PDs so far this year, and one of the activities we did this past week, we had teams group up in what are going to be their future professional learning communities. So our professional learning communities are going to do a lot of our work this year as we examine data and also try to reach and meet the needs of all of our students throughout the year. So one of their tasks this past week was to come up with their own missions for their individual grade levels to start. And they'll be subdivided into their professional learning communities. So these are three of the missions that that came up from our groups this past week. So one grade level said, our mission is to collaboratively provide high quality education in safe, respectful, and inclusive environments. Another group took the direction of, the mission of our team is to help students transition from elementary to secondary education by empowering them to become responsible, respectful, reflective problem solvers while supporting and encouraging our fellow educators. And then the final one is our purpose is to work collaboratively with the common goals of creating a positive school culture and teaching students to be independent thinkers that become productive members of society. So you can see what they come up with is very grounded in our district mission and visions. So what are we doing at BMS this year? Last year, a lot of our goals were surrounding two components of the strategic plan. This year, you're going to see as we outline our goals, we're really working in all four areas of the strategic plan. So a safe and orderly school environment, a collaborative culture, clear and accessible curriculum, and effective teaching in every classroom. So our first goal is we're going to interpret and analyze the results of student assessments to enhance instruction. So we've been doing this for a long time. We want to do it better. So we're breaking this down into two parts. We're developing our professional learning community model, PLCs, at the middle school in alignment from our PLC trainings that we're doing this year. So as a district, we're training, and then as a middle school, we're trying to grow with what we're already doing and try to move forward to provide the best we can for our students. So we're going to add to our assessment bank and eDoctrina that are aligned with our essential standards in all core content areas. So math, ELA, social studies, and science. Data will be analyzed in our professional learning communities to analyze student growth and performance. So I'm going to go through with you how we plan on doing that this year. So going back to our first goal. So we're really proud this year in the work that we've done throughout the summer and the fall to enhance our 5th grade experience. As we all know, it's a big transition year for our students. You're coming from elementary to the middle school. We're trying to put things in place to make them as comfortable as well as feeling a part of the middle school. So one of the things we did this year, we put a lot of work into what we call cohorting our 5th grade classes. So every 5th grade homeroom, every 5th grade section, just like in John Kennedy Elementary, follows the same group of kids all day. That's one of the reasons we had to move band and chorus to outside of school hours, because that didn't allow them to transition together. So this way here, they follow each other all day for all their core areas and their electives until 9th period. 9th period is a time where we differentiate instruction for them based on need, for different academic opportunities that we have scaled for them based on needs. The next thing we did, as you know, the cafeteria in the middle school is a little bit small, and it's an intimidating place. We're up 60 to 80 kids per day that are getting breakfast in our school from last year, and I thought it was just a beginning of the year thing, but it's really carried through, and it's been wonderful for our kids. So what we've done is we've developed a 5th grade breakfast room, and it's right next to the cafeteria, so they don't have to go far. We thought about maybe having it in their classrooms, but we thought having it downstairs in the cafeteria area would be best for them, and it's been incredibly successful. They come in, they eat, they're around just their grade level for that portion, and when they're finished, they're allowed to go together to their 5th grade hall where they're supervised by 5th grade teachers and monitors, just to try to get them a smooth start to the day. A third thing that we did was we actually bothered our maintenance department a little bit this summer, because we said, we have this great 5th grade hallway, but we can't fit all the kids in the lockers that are there. And in previous years, issues that we had was they kind of would have to turn corners and be part of another hallway. We wanted every kid to have a locker right outside their homeroom and classroom. Because the way students are grouped in 5th grade in the middle school is your sciences and math teacher is directly next door to your English and social studies teacher. So that's 4 of the 9 periods they have together per day. So their lockers are right outside, and it keeps them close together, and then allows our teachers also to escort them. Just like with the cohorting process, all of our 5th grade students are escorted to their classes from one to the other to help with transition and smooth operation. So another thing we did this past summer was we don't want 5th graders to have study halls, and we want to provide them experience based on needs. So we had a lot of discussion throughout last year and throughout the summer. Thank you to Mr. Burns, our health expert district-wide. He's a health teacher. He has a wide range of knowledge for health curriculum. We really thought that our 5th grade students could use a health course that was appropriate for their grade level. When you're talking about mental health, social emotional learning, they're starting to look at social media, talking through those things. We've also integrated the DARE program in this class. So Maya Stevens is coming into the class for that portion. We've also got our new JACASA counselor that comes in for a portion of that class. And it's been well received so far with the first group of 5th graders going through the first marking period. The second thing that we did is we created a digital citizenship class, and that was for a few reasons. First of all, to make kids more comfortable with computers and all the Google platform that we use district-wide, to make them more comfortable with those things. But also, this year's the first year 5th and 8th graders have to, in New York State, take computer-based testing. So this is also an opportunity for them to work on not only keyboarding skills, but basic navigation of different platforms, so we can help better prep them so that in the springtime, when they're being tested via computers, they're not being tested on content and computers. It's to make it as seamless of a transition as possible for them. So you actually see some students in action here. This is one of our sections of 5th grade health on the right, and these are students in action on the left in our digital citizenship class. And I'll turn it over to the assistant principals for expectations.
Excellent. So just a quick background about student expectations. This process actually started last school year and then worked its way through the summer so that we had, basically a work product that we could present to the students at the beginning of the school year. So last year, expectations were generated by department heads, and they were shared with us over the summer. We created a document. I was able to take that document, look at the school code of conduct, come up with a presentation that we could share at the beginning of the year, like I mentioned, with the students, teachers, and also a document that we could share through Parent Square, so that pretty much every aspect of the community, being teachers, students, and family members, all knew ahead of time what their expectations were going to be at Batavia Middle School. And that's across every grade level in the building. And I think that using Parent Square was an excellent addition as well, because we could actually monitor some of the data associated to who received and was able to get eyes on set expectations, so that if a teacher calls home or if one of us calls home and we mention one of those expectations, we know that everybody across the board has seen it and knows what we're talking about. Cell phones being one of those expectations. I know that cell phones are obviously a big part of student life, and some of the things we actually talk about in the 5th grade health education class. But when instruction is going on, there are some standards that we've set forth. Our 5th graders and 6th graders, they keep their cell phones in their lockers or in their backpacks while they're in their lockers. Currently, our 7th and 8th grade students are allowed to have their cell phones on their person, but not out when instruction is going on. Now, our end goal here is to model the high school and eventually get our 7th and 8th grade students, so that they enter a classroom, they're taking their cell phones and putting in cell phone carriers, so that when our 8th grade students make the transition to the high school, they automatically got it. So, that's the transition we're making moving forward into the spring too.
Hall sweeps are an important part of keeping our students safe, and we're, as staff, we're accountable for all our kids. And we are ensuring that if kids are in the halls during class time, they have a pass. And it is to the point now when they see me, they do this, because they know I'm going to ask, and I'm going to escort them back to their room if they don't have a pass, and just say, they need a pass. No pass, no go. Don't collect 200. So they know. And we have been doing some random hall sweeps and have found the majority of kids have a pass, which is fantastic. That's what we want. We want everyone to be accountable and know where our kids are at all times. The other thing that we've been doing to help monitor students and ensure a safe environment is staffing our high traffic bathrooms. So we do have monitors 7 out of the 9 periods per day, where kids sign in before they go into the bathroom, and it ensures accountability. Kids know, well, that's right, I put my name and the time I went into the bathroom, and if something happens and it's reported, I know that I'm accountable for that time frame that I was in the bathroom. It helps improve the cleanliness and lessen how much damage is being done in the middle school bathrooms.
Okay, so as we continue with meeting the needs of all students, we've done a lot of work this year on social emotional learning that we're trying to gain momentum with as we keep on going throughout the year. We worked in conjunction with the high school. Thank you, Travis Burns and Jessica Corzilius, for setting all this up. We had the ECHO dance team in, and our kids had a really good time. We had 5th and 6th grade for one presentation, and then 7th and 8th for the other. And this team came in and were very captivating with their dancing, their songs, and then getting the kids interested and engaged, and they really had a great message at the end of each of their performances surrounding just kindness, being nice to each other. Each of them gave their own story. All three of the members of this group gave their own story about bullying in their experience, from being bullied to even recognize in some place being bystanders with friends who engaged in bullying behaviors, and worked with the students on just kind of spreading the message of kindness and how to be good to one another and how to look out for your classmates. And then they engaged with students afterwards if they had some questions, and they did a really nice job. A couple of the other ways that we're meeting the needs of the students. So our shared decision-making team at the middle school this year has been grounded in ensuring that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. So you guys did the PPCO process this year? No? Okay, so over the summer during our retreat, we did a PPCO process where essentially you're given a potential problem or an idea, and you work through the pluses moving forward if you were to grow with that idea, concerns that you may have, and then overcoming the concerns or overcoming the obstacles as a group. So we did that activity with the shared decision-making group to come up with ways that we could meet the needs of all of our students. So we've been spending our first couple meetings looking at ways that we can reach all of the students. And we're generating a lot of great ideas that I'll be able to present to you soon, and we're finalizing a lot of the products with that. And we're also working within that group throughout the year on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also, a picture up here of Circle Up Days. We've had 2 Circle Up Days so far. We're working on approaching our 3rd, and students are given a topic that they're going to discuss, and they share out as a group to try to build community within their classrooms. We had a really neat one last month where students were asked, what is your favorite place in the building? And I was actually walking around with Dr. Corey at the time for some of them, and it was interesting to hear what a lot of the kids had to say. And then the follow-up to that was, if you were to create your favorite place in the building, what would that look like? So it was interesting enough information that I was overhearing that I went back to our SEL team, and I asked them if they would put out a survey to our students so we could collect and gather that information, and then again, bring that back to the SEL team, bring it back to shared decision making, and make sure if it's possible that we can provide those spaces for our students. So, data-driven instruction. So back to our original goals. As staff, we focused our attention on learning and understanding what professional learning communities are through faculty meetings and conference days. So far, we've talked a lot since the beginning of the year with our whole group on where we're going as a district for professional learning communities. And then in conference day training so far, we've been working on what a professional learning community looks like, and then most recently got into discussions on the second bullet, which is identifying and breaking down standards. So you've got a time crunch when you're a teacher. There's so many standards out there for every core content area that you've basically got to pick your essential standards and things that every kid in that room needs to learn before the end of the year, and then how are we going to ensure that we're doing that? So within our assessment progression, and the assessment leads into the professional learning communities, because what you want to do with the professional learning communities is track data, ensure that you're meeting the needs of all the students, and if you are, what are you going to do next? And if you aren't, what are you going to do next? So part of that is the assessment portion. So in last year, our coaches worked hard with the ELA and math assessments in 5th grade. They started generating documentation in eDoctrina. Do you guys know what eDoctrina is? Okay, so within eDoctrina, creating assessments, and the nice thing for teachers is it stays there, so you can go back to it the following year and improve it. You don't have to recreate the wheel every year with it. Use data to choose priority standards, and then provide training to Batavia Middle School staff. So these are all roles that our coaches took on last year, Mrs. Folletti and Mrs. Shusky, who you'll hear from later this year. And then in teams, we review results weekly at their content meetings and discuss trends across grades. So if Mr. Burns and I are both teaching 5th grade math, and my kids did a great job on this topic, and his kids struggled on a specific area. It leads to good conversations on, what did you do different? What did I do different? And what is something I can try with my students? So this year, we're creating biweekly assessments for grades 5 through 8 in all core content areas. So we're taking what we started with eDoctrina last year, and we're doing it in all grade levels. So coaches surveyed the staff to identify areas for additional training, which I'll get into in a little while, like how we've helped staff with the use of eDoctrina and making it more user-friendly. And we actually just had an EduTech specialist come in because our teachers are much more well-versed in eDoctrina now. They could ask better questions. So, and then lastly, our PLCs, our professional learning communities, are going to analyze and discuss those results in their meetings, because they all have weekly meetings, and we're making data part of those meetings and transitioning over the next 3 years into, full professional learning communities. So some of the data we collect on the year, we do our iReady diagnostics, which I think you guys are familiar with. We do 3 of them throughout the year, one in the fall, one in the mid-year, and then one in the spring. In all the core content areas, we use DIBELS in grades 5 and 6, which is for reading, and then DESA, which is basically taking a look at our students' social emotional needs. At one of our conference days recently, we had each grade level go through that for each of their students. And then in the middle of the year, again, the iReady diagnostic, the DIBELS, and the DESA. And then you have the end of the year iReady diagnostics and our state tests. And again, in grades 5 and 8, your math, ELA, and science are computer-based testing this year. So some of our ongoing, you've got eDoctrina state-released questions. We've had some teachers putting together really good pre-assessments, and what a pre-assessment is getting an assessment of where kids are before you start on a specific area, mid-module and end-of-module assessments, as well as checks for understanding, what you call formative assessments, and then progress monitoring to make sure kids are heading where we need. So what we developed this summer was a data collecting spot. And this is just an example of a teacher's tab for this. So essentially, and I had to unpopulate it, you have all the students that you teach in this column. And then for interventions, are they in the MTSS process? Checkbox if they are. Do they have a 504 would be marked here. And then our tier 3 and tier 2, this is a reading teacher specifically, so her chart looks a little bit different. Who's receiving what level of support in those areas, so it can be monitored as you look at the assessments they're taking. And again, this is our reading teacher, so these students took the DIBELS assessment. Not all students would do that. And then also they have their baseline iReady data for the beginning of the year. And it goes red, yellow, green, based on how students are growing, how they're performing, and whether or not they're at grade level. Now, the next slide, and this isn't very populated yet. We have, again, a blank for your students. This is an ELA teacher, so they're going to have all of their information put in for LFP and DIBELS, and then they've already got their base in for iReady diagnostics. And then as they head on, this is where their eDoctrina scores are going to go in for their weekly and bi-weekly assessments. So they can look at those, and then if I was to show you the whole spreadsheet, tab to tab, teachers can see how they're doing, and then they can combine data with each other to have good conversations surrounding data. But our goal is to create a spot for all teachers to implement it and continue to work on this spreadsheet as we go to make it as user-friendly as possible, because what a 5th grade teacher needs is a little bit different than what an 8th grade teacher needs for data. So I have a couple pictures of data in action for us. This was our EduTech training, and he had an hour for us after school to answer all things eDoctrina for us. He probably could have stayed for 2 hours. Got pictures of the 7th and 8th grade teams working together as they were analyzing the state data that was just released, so they could all take a look together. And in the last picture, you can see students taking an eDoctrina computer-based test. And again, one of the reasons we want students doing it is it very, very closely mimics what the state assessments will look like at the end of the year when they're taking them computer-based. And then in closing, we have a couple of videos for you to just talk about data from a student lens and from a teacher lens. Are you able to click on those for me?
Oh, actually,
Working on it.
you need to click it. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So after you finish taking a test, what happens next? Well, we're able to do corrections, and we have about a week to do them. And we can usually do them with friends or by email.
So how do you learn from your mistakes?
By going back and seeing what you did wrong and what you can fix when you have it.
And how do you know you're successful?
Because usually my teachers push me to do my best and help me with stuff that I struggle with.
Thank you.
That's Sophia Lawrence, one of our 7th grade students.
How do you use eDoctrina and the results you receive from it?
So BMS has started a school-wide initiative to test students every month where we pick a passage from a New York State exam and test students with maybe multiple choice or an ACE paragraph. And I just gave my first one yesterday. I chose a passage from the 2022 New York State 8th grade ELA assessment. It was paired with 7 multiple choice questions. Each question is paired with a different New York State standard. So after students submit their answer, they get immediate feedback. They know how many they got correct on the 7. And then on my end, I'm able to see which standards are maybe lacking, what I need to maybe go over, and see where students are struggling, if they are.
And how do you use eDoctrina to help students prepare to be successful for the upcoming computer-based testing?
So I think that eDoctrina has a lot of positives, and I try to tell my students that as well. With that being, they get to be exposed to the exact layout that they're going to see, and with the big push for CBT, and that's what they're going to see. My 8th graders are going to see it in April when they take their test. As much exposure as they can get to it, and every month when we can practice, I think will be helpful for them in the long run.
Thank you.
Great, and that's Ms. Tedderis, one of our 8th grade ELA teachers.
How do you use
So I know I've talked about a lot of different things. Do you have any questions for any of us about anything that's going on at the middle school or anything we presented on?
We will have statewide test scores for the next month across the district. Dr. Corey's working at gathering those so we can compare ourselves against other schools our size. So those are still some in embargo, so once we have those, Dr. Corey is going to give us a report in December on the 3 through 8 test scores as a district, which overall we were pleased with those results.
We have a lot to celebrate that, sure.
I have a question, you didn't speak on it, but I know a couple of 5th grade parents are wondering when the report cards come out for 5th graders, because everybody else is.
That's a great question. They were mailed this afternoon.
Okay.
So
Because I know some people asked
unfortunately,
if it was on
with-
Parent Square, and I knew personally I didn't have it
For
there.
grades 6 through 8, they were able to go out, but we did have a problem with it linking student numbers for 5th grade students to Parent Square. So they're all stuffed in envelopes and went out this afternoon.
Perfect.
By the end of the school year, you'll have lots of information. Are you planning on using time in the summer to go over that, all of those results, and plan for your next step in this whole process?
Absolutely, that's the goal. I mean, as far as placement and any interventions you can put into place and schedule into student schedules heading into the next year proactively is useful. So we use this in line and in conjunction with the state data also. Unfortunately, the state data came out a little bit late this year, so luckily we had our other data for that, but yes, that's the goal. Any other questions?
Another question, just quick, thank you. I mean, a lot of changes in the middle school, you've done a great job.
Thank you.
We're never going to please everyone, but the word on the street is increasing very good, and I think that's a tribute to all your guys' hard work, and it's part of the board. I want to thank you for stepping up and making a lot of changes and doing what you guys are doing there.
Thank you, I
It's
appreciate
being
it.
noticed.
I appreciate it. The team's doing a great job. I appreciate you guys.
Are you finding that your staff is also enthusiastic about all of these changes that you're making?
Yeah, fifth grade has enjoyed and been a part of a lot of it. And as Mr. Burns said, we took a lot of feedback from them at the end of last year to structure things over the summertime, to support them in terms of what they saw. But as we're getting into professional learning communities, like as funny as it sounds, like you can't imagine how excited they were when they actually sat down and physically saw their students' data from the previous year, and just so they could get their hands into it, see their success stories, and just see areas they want to change and work on things for this year. So they've been very excited. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great Thanksgiving yourself.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this off. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. Good night, folks. Next up is our reports. First up, Superintendent's report. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, John. In my board report, you'll see a couple of handouts there. I just want to point it out to you, my documents there. There's a flyer there indicating that on Fridays with our cafeteria director, Susan Crusher, we are now serving several New York State-based foods in the cafeteria. Last week, the middle school family night, I sample tasted the apple cider and the chips, so I recommend those. There's also a sample menu there from Jackson showing what's going on. So if you're looking for a place to come to have lunch, we have all beef hot dogs, we have upstate yogurt, New York apple cider, New York carrot stick. So we're very excited about that. Well, I thank Andy for his work with Susan on that as well. So excited to launch that. Again, there's information on my on the documents there. As Nate talked about, the PLC project, Professional Learning Communities project, is well underway. I've sat in on almost all the sessions, participated in many of them. The staff has been busy writing mission statements, unpacking and aligning learning standards, practicing with their process. We have an on-site coach who comes to us once a month from Wisconsin with prioritizing standards. We've even made a playlist of songs that reflect our priorities. And Molly has some sample items to show you before I go on.
So we've been really trying hard to build the teams to be really collaborative in all that they do. And what that means is they're really learning to appreciate each other and the value that they can bring to the team. So on the conference days, as they've been learning about the process, we've been having them anchor in on what it means to be a true collaborative team. And they made posters, what does it look like and sound like. They've came up with their professional norms. Some of them kind of have some fun with it, with making mascots to help represent them. And the reality is that they're building, a strong bond together so that when it gets into planning for instruction, they can do that together. When they look at an assessment, Nate talked about how we want to have a plan for what do we do if a student has made that, so that we're extending them, but also the ones who haven't, what are the things we can do to be together to ensure that they're going to have extra time to learn what they need to be learning, those essentials. The one thing that I think has come out of it that's opened a lot of our eyes is they say that there's about 15,000 hours worth of instruction needed, and the reality is we have about 9,000 a year. So we have to be really discreet with what we're selecting and saying is important, and then ensuring that it happens.
So as I said, I've been part of that. We've actually gone through with the team, dissected standards, underlined vocabulary. It's been a really enjoyable process. It's been a good thinking process, and it's going to continue all year long. I believe there's one more board session as well in December.
Two more.
There's 2 more board sessions, so I would encourage you, we'll send out more information for the board, so we're really excited about this long-term project. The capital project update is underway. We've had 2 staff presentations I have given. I have 2 more to go. I've given 2 parent group presentations. John and I and Andy will be on the radio tomorrow morning at 8:45 on WBTA to talk more about the project. The public hearings, again, are on November 28th at 4 o'clock at the middle school. And then at December 7th at 7 p.m. at the high school. The vote is on December 14th. If you were home this weekend, Penny Sager, the newsletter came. So I'm pleased with how that turned out. There's also going to be a video coming out shortly as well. So we're looking forward to that. We're not going to meet again until after the vote, so just would encourage everybody to come out and vote. emphasize there is no additional taxes as a result of this project. Winter sports have begun. There's a parent meeting happening right now. So best wishes to our winter athletes. Concert season is underway. I went to the rock band concert last month. We have several more concerts coming up in the month of December and January. Safety update, we have finished up the I Love You Guys safety training. That's the common vocabulary for drills and evacuations and such. It's been completed at all the schools. The high school and middle school were finished up last week. We did share some information with parents prior in the year. More information will be coming. I do want to thank the police department for the partnership with this. It's been fantastic. Officer Borkett and Officer Stevens have been helpful as well. Thanks to the board for your advocacy. The small cities proposition passed a couple weeks ago. It's not going to affect this project, this capital project, but the next project that we may engage in will give us more flexibility for borrowing funds. Painting over here is going to be in the play in a couple weeks in Alibi at the high school. It's a black box though, right? It's going to be on stage, so it's funny. I saw it last year. I saw it was a different show last year. It's a light show. It's funny. So that's the first weekend in December, 7 p.m. Friday, Saturday, 2 p.m. Sunday.
Yes.
Yep. So come out and see that. And finally, happy Thanksgiving to all of you and to our staff, families, and students. So, any questions? Thank you. All right, next up, Kate.
So fall sports are officially over. We didn't end up winning any sectional titles. However, our teams performed incredibly well, and we even won some division titles, which also means now that fall sports are over, time for winter sports, which is extremely exciting. A lot of my friends have had their first practices, including my sister, and they're all very excited for their winter sports. We had our fall ball. We ended up figuring out a much more efficient way to sell our tickets. Normally we would have like Google Forms set up and we would fill them out personally. We ended up getting a QR code this year and it worked so much better having the students scan them themselves because all of them have their phones in lunch. All of them have their phones on them in lunch and they just scan it and they fill out the Google form themselves and it pops up on our screen and it worked so much better. We ended up selling over 300 tickets to the dance. And it was a lot of fun and I would say one of the best decorated dances we've had in a while for our school-wide dances. Special thanks to Liliana Burke, a current senior, and one of our co-mayors, along with her family. We had a balloon archway display. They were a large part of making that, along with decorating the entire hallway, while other students worked in the gymnasium. We also had our Veterans Day ceremony. The band and chorus had a combined performance along with the orchestra having their own individual performance. We also had Steve Hawley as a guest speaker there. The assembly went well and so did the reception afterwards. As Mr. Smith touched on, rehearsals have been underway for the play, our Batavia High School's play, The Alibis, a comedic murder mystery play. The show is in less than 2 weeks, which is very exciting. We've been pushing very hard to keep working at it, and it's been going so amazingly, especially with all of the help we've been getting. The shows are December 1st and 2nd at 7 p.m. and December 3rd at 2 p.m. And we also have virtually no downtime because we jump into our musical for the year, Footloose, starting with auditions 2 days later on December 5th and 6th. As Mr. Smith also mentioned, we have our chorus concert coming up, which is combined with the band, I believe. And we also have other concerts coming up. We are going caroling with the Tri-M, one of our music honor societies. We plan on going caroling throughout the district. Specifically, I think our plans are for Jackson Primary and potentially Robert Morris. And also, happy Thanksgiving soon.
Thanks, Payne. All right, next up is consent grouping. This would be for a motion to approve the grouping of consent items E through M. If I could have a motion, please.
So moved.
Ms. Lindblad, can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Regal.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, now we're to old business. First up, approval of the Smart Schools Bond Act investment plan. Does anybody have any questions on it?
Just so you know, this is, I may have mentioned this to you, I know, but this is the second approval. So you approved it maybe like 2 months ago. We had public feedback. We haven't got any public feedback, so pending your approval, we'll go ahead and submit this to the state tomorrow and wait for approval from the state. So, thank you to Brian Sutton and Tricia Finnegan and both Andy and Scott when he was here for the work on this as well.
Any questions, Will? No? All right, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Rigo, can I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bowman?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, next up, approve the 2023-2024 capital outlay bid for stage improvements at Batavia Middle School from Syracuse Scenery and Stage Lighting Company. Are there any questions on that? No? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Ms. Linden, can I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Anderson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Approve the revised 2023-2024 Board of Education meeting schedule, revised for December meeting. Any questions on that?
Thank you for that.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
We'll go Ms. Benedict first, and we'll go Ms. Bowman second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Next up, post-site inspectors and workers of the BCSD budget vote, capital project vote, and Board of Education elections pay adjustment memorandum. Any questions? No? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Rigo, could I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Graham.
Right, buzzers. We need buzzers. We need buzzers.
Did you do? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, now we're on to new business. Approve capital project vote, BCSD Reimagine inspectors for December 14th, 2023. Any questions? Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Rigo, could I have a second?
Second.
Who said that?
Oh, really? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Number 2, resolution for cooperative bidding by participating with Genesee Valley BOCES and Monroe 2 BOCES. Any questions? Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Ms. Bowman, could I have a second? Ms. Anderson?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And third, approval of the resolution and corrective action plan for the final audited report and final audited basic financial statements year ending June 30, 2023. Any questions? No? Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Rigo, second.
Second.
Ms. Anderson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, next up is discussion and/or other reports. The administrative reports, curriculum, operations, and business ops are all on board docs, so by all means, take a look at those. Number 2, do any board members have any comments or any other thing that they'd like to throw out there? Anybody?
Just a quick congratulations to first-year football coach Alex Belts on a successful season for his first year. Very well.
Absolutely. I just have a couple of things to say. I had the honor and privilege of touring all of our schools in the district last Tuesday, starting at 8:30 in the morning and ending around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was just starting at the high school, and going to JK, go to the middle school, Jackson, and finally over to Robert Morris. It was nice to see, walk the halls, step into some classrooms, see the kids and the teachers
Have you
Fantastic.
ever been in all of the buildings?
Have I ever been in all the buildings? This was my first time being in, well, I've been in all the buildings, but not on one day.
I see.
But doing it all in one day, I got my steps in, I can tell you that right now. The highlight of my day was at Jackson, went into one of the rooms, and from what Principal Matara said is that this young student loves to give hugs. So she came right over, gave Maria a hug. I think that was just awesome seeing that. You know, she has that with all the kids and the both schools that she is in charge of. And then the girl came over and kind of tugged on Maria and said, "Can I give him a hug too?" So I got one hug and then I got two hugs. So that was the highlight of my day to have that happen. But I'm looking forward to in the spring to do the same thing, do the daily tour of all the schools again. But also, just wanted to give a shout out to one of our wrestlers that are Casper Stewart, just recently, pound for pound, #1 in New York State. And that's, yes, that was his father that gave the presentation. So great things are ahead for young Mr. Stewart. So just wanted to give Casper a shout out right there. So there's nothing else. We are going to go into executive session. Call for executive session will be a motion to move to executive session to discuss matters relating to medical, financial, credit, or employment history for a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Ms. Linton, could I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Mullen?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And we will not be returning.